So, this is the first time in 20 years that we've done a new film. We, of course, over time, we've updated the film a little bit. Every time the president did a new parachute jump, we added the parachute jump, or every time Mrs. Bush had some new accomplishment, we also added that. So we did update the film from time to time, but the basic core film is the same film we've had for 20 years. And so the president and Ms. Bush are not with us anymore. So it's time for a new film. So can you talk a little bit about the process and the thought behind what should be in the new film?
Sure. So very familiar over the years, knowing the family and all the work that's gone on here at the library and all that. So our background is pretty rich in this history here. For the new film, one of the things that you and I have talked about over the past years, that we want to do something that's going to hopefully sit out there for another 10, 15 years. I mean, we were real fortunate that the film that was in there, the one we did, ran for 18 years, I believe. And the other good thing about what we did with that film is we literally filmed President and Mrs. Bush on 35 millimeter. That film right now is actually at a lab at SMU where they're converting it up to 4K video, and it looks beautiful. I mean, it looks probably better than the original transfer that we did back in the day, because we've upgraded. The film was going to go up to hopefully 4K or at least HD. I know we're going to be mixing a lot of media with everything from VHS to old photos and all that. But we're really trying to capture the story that is their lives are complete now, and I think being able to obviously focus on their accomplishments in office and his war days and all that, but also the family man and kind of the legacy they've both left for their families. So that's one of the threads that we're weaving into the story. So we're anxious to get back into the archives back here at some point to
hopefully soon.
To dig into.
Nobody wants that more than me.
Oh, I'm sure. Well, and one of the good things also is I have got a pretty good library myself back at our office of old footage, lots of films that we had done in the past that we'll be able to use as resources for that. So
you have done a lot of stuff. You did an exhibit a few years ago on Barbara Bush, and so there was a lot of video for that. And of course, there's the archives. I think there's 10,000 video cassettes up there, all beta analog. I think there's actually some 3/4 inch up there too for the early years. But there's millions of photographs. So and then there, of course, you did talk about the stuff we've done in the early days, the interviews, which some great interviews here. Him sitting in front of a replica of the White House.
Their father. I get responsibility for the goodness.
I don't know, each one is different. They're all different.
Talk a little bit about the process of how you go and you find the resources to put in the film.
Sure. And some of this stuff is kind of put on pause right now. I mean, even working through the archives, not just here, but the National Archives, trying to get footage out of them. We're looking for an example, we want to get some aircraft carrier footage of the Avengers taking off, kind of try to create a little bit of a Top Gun moment or whatever. But getting into those researchers, and we've done this on other projects too, where you hire researchers and stuff like that. So part of the thread of the story, we've got fortunately we've got all the audio recordings from the first film we did with them. We've got several others that are going to be supplemental resources for us where, we have Barbara talking about their time in China. We also did another one where she pretty much went through a full scrapbook. I do want to mention one thing that I think is kind of interesting, an interesting parallel. When we first started working on the other project, the first project was right at 9/11. And John and myself, we were some of the first researchers to go through some of the scrapbooks that are up there even now, and it was quite a moment to be looking at pictures of GW up against a bike and knowing all the deals he's having to deal with 9/11, and it was just kind of an odd time, and here we are again. Almost 20 years later.
And another very odd time.
Very odd time, but nonetheless, back to the process. We've got an outline. We know where we're starting. We know where we're going to end, and then a lot of the times, we can tell the story in a narrative form. Getting in to find the resources, the visual resources, that's going to be exactly. And some of that may change. If we get better resources, then maybe that goes in and something else comes out. But it's going to be their story. We're just really privileged to be able to work on it.
So that you talk about the scrapbooks, and those scrapbooks that Mrs. Bush kept, there's over 100 of them up there, and people always say, did Mrs. Bush really do them? She had somebody do them for her. And no. Somebody here made the mistake of asking that question one time, and Mrs. Bush pointed out quickly, in her own Mrs. Bush sort of way, that those scrapbooks she did. And we redid this museum after about 10 or 11 years. One of the reasons was because of those scrapbooks, because there were so many valuable resources up there. So we got to get you back in those scrapbooks. Another question. So you're right. The President, Ms. Bush, their story is complete. So in this film, talk a little bit about looking past and also their legacy. Will you treat the legacy that is the future for President?
Yeah, and I think their legacy is their family and everything that they're doing. I know some of the things we've talked about is actually getting more candid photos that are more recent, and trying to tell that part of the story. But yes, everything from the foundations that they've started, the laws enacted, all those things carry forward, and we'll touch on as many of those as we can in the time allotted, but yeah.
All right, so hopefully by the time people see this, this will all be over. You've touched on a little bit. Just talk a little bit about how hard it is to do this when you can't fly to New York and sit down and interview somebody you might want to interview because you can't get on a plane with a bunch of equipment and do it, or you can't fly to Washington, D.C. and sit down with, schedule a film session where you hit 3 or 4 people, and you can't get to the National Archives to get the resources there, like maybe the Avengers flying off an aircraft carrier. How are you handling that?
Well, in some ways we're not. In other ways, it's like the things that we have in-house. Matter of fact, I'll pick up next Friday. I'll pick up the film, so that will be those are going to be core elements. And I got to. It was real interesting going back to the old tapes that we had, the old digital audio tapes that we had, where we interviewed President Bush over in their quarters over there. And I wish everybody could hear that. It was a conversation. Obviously we used it in the film, but just to, sit from here to there and talk to, him about his life. It was absolute privilege. I mean, and even there's a few stories that I could tell, but it was interesting how we just started talking, and I asked him how what his first plane was that he flew, and did he have an interest in flying other than the big Avenger. That was a huge plane, but it was just a great conversation. Also had a couple of those with Barbara too on some of the projects we worked on, and just very personable.
We miss. I mean, they were here for so long. They were part of the museum, in and out of here all the time. So that's the part it's kind of strange. So this film, the whole thing started before COVID, so we've kind of had to rearrange how we're working on it. So it'll take time, but it'll be worth it, I think.
Oh yeah. It's kind of. I think the next big step is for us to get in here. I mean, that's going to be a huge one, and then because by then we should have a fairly organized narrative. We know the content we're working with right now, and then figuring out some other things that we know we can get to legally. Make sure that we do all that, because there's so much stuff out there. You could pull it off of YouTube or whatever, but getting permission to use the original sourcing for that.
So your first film that you did was an award winner.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're looking forward.
Yeah, we are too.
You got to top yourself.
Oh no, we gotta do our best. We will. We'll absolutely.
Anything else that you might want to add?
I think anytime we do a film, we create a mission statement, and it's exactly that. What is the viewer going to walk away with? And of course we've been around President and Mrs. Bush, so we know the story. So I kind of, as a writer and a director, I have to step away and try to look at this as a fresh moment, to make sure that that what we put in there is relevant and true to their story. So being able to do that without the filter of everybody knows that about them. So we want to make sure.
Why are you putting that in there?
Yeah.
Well, Mrs. Bush, not everybody knows about that.
Exactly. Well, and again, trying to be complete in the story, and then everything from their great sense of humor. That's we'll have that in there. I mean, they used to rib each other. I mean, it was like a comedy act, and so people need to know that. Well, and again, trying to be complete in the story, and then everything from their great sense of humor. That's we'll have that in there. I mean, they used to rib each other. I mean, it was like a comedy act, and so people need to know that, and not to say it's easy, but it would be easy to just go back and just pick the headlines of achievements. But we're beyond headlines now. I think being able to have the viewer walk away going, I did not know that. There's a couple of those moments just to show how rich and full lives they led. I mean, how many people at 80 and whatever jump out of airplanes, and we saw a handful of those.
Perfectly good airplane, as she would say.
Well, there's a few stories when the one I can't remember, the one that they were delayed in the air, and we were running out of tape. I mean, they kept bringing people to the stage and talking, and anyway, it was. I mean, we again feel totally privileged being able to work on the project, but just to have the opportunity to go through their memories. The scrapbooks. I mean, this is stuff they were sitting and tables and on the couches and folding, flipping through pages of photos and stuff, and it's pretty amazing to get to share that and to witness it. So,
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
thank you.